So it was a hard upbringing. But when people talk about pocket money, there was no such thing.
We first got more face-to-face on the opposite sides of a political spectrum, but I think what we do have in common in that is our passion for Peterborough. What would be the most common mistakes that you think businesses make?
I think most of them don't spend enough time on thinking the route that they want to take.
But if you could just think, am I enjoying things as they are? Is the business where I want it to be? Am I in the business I want to be in? And if not, where do I want to be in the future? What do I need to change?
Making money and making excuses is mutually exclusive. You're either doing one or the other. I think it was Earl Nightingale who said, we're all self-made, but it's only the rich who admit it.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Success is a System. I'm Mike Greene and I've got with me today very, very successful local businessman, Shaz Nawaz. And we have both been in business locally for many years. We have both had various business in many years. We've both been in politics locally on opposite sides of politics. So we're not going to get into that. But what I do like about that is that you should be able to be of a different position with somebody, have that debate, have strong debate, but still respect each other. I have massive respect for Shaz and what is achieved locally. And what I want to talk a little bit today are the systems behind finance, because Shaz is very successful finance business, accountancy, advisory. He's got a very successful nursery business, property, all sorts of really multiple and varied business across many properties. Truly an entrepreneur in the full meaning of the word. So you're going to get some great systems for success as we go through today. Shaz, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And as I say, we first got more face-to-face on the opposite sides of a political spectrum. But I think what we do have in common in that is our passion for Peterborough. So I often start these by asking my guests to say a little bit about where they're from. You know, I don't know your life before Peterborough, you know, whether you grew up with a silver spoon or whether you kind of had a more challenged upbringing, spouse situation, how you got into the business or skill set that you're in. And give us a kind of quick summary of life to date that brought you to Peterborough.
So, born in Peterborough.
Right.
And then my family moved to Pakistan, Kashmir to be precise, and lived there for quite a few years. Then came back and went to the Beaches School in Millfield, in the heart of the town centre. And as you can imagine, because obviously you know Peterborough reasonably well, it was and still is one of the most deprived areas in the city and possibly in the country. So it was a hard upbringing. When people talk about pocket money, there was no such thing.
You had no pockets.
Yeah, no pockets. And you had one kid who either had a bat and a ball or a football, and we all used to obviously use that every single day during the holidays or the evenings or the weekends to play. So life was tough and hard. And we was pretty much surrounded by one particular community, which is the Asian community, because we're kind of all living in that particular area and that hub. And the primary school that I went to, in fact, I think we had maybe one or two English folk. The rest were all Asian.
Yeah.
So that was my initial start in life. Then I went to Bretton Woods, like you did, and that was an experience. Very different, indeed.
It's interesting. You didn't say if it was a positive or negative experience. But
positive experience, I'd say.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And I went to Bretton Woods, Mike, because it had a swimming pool.
Yeah.
So there were two choices, Jack Hunt at the time and Bretton Woods. And I chose Bretton Woods because some of my friends were going there. So I really thought about it deeply, of course, as you can imagine, for why I was choosing a particular secondary
Nothing
school.
about the exams or
No.
Yeah.
That was all secondary. No, really, I think Bretton Woods partly shaped who I am as a person. And I think that experience and the experience of living in Millfield and going to the beaches school really defined me as who I am as a person. Because quite often, uh, and we were talking about this earlier, people use their experiences either as a handicap or as an advantage. So let's talk about me. I could say I'm Asian and I perhaps don't have a sense of belonging, or people don't accept me in this city or this country. I'm Muslim, and people think most Muslims or all Muslims are terrorists, or some people think that. Okay, I can use many other excuses, by the way. But why would you do that? Why would you not use your experiences and your knowledge and your experience and your expertise and use that as a strength and celebrate that and say, what? How can I use this to my advantage? But to answer your initial question, after that, obviously, we went through a formal education and started working in London for the bank. Well, started working for Ernst and Young, then Bank of New York, JP Morgan.
So did you go to uni? Or?
I did, and I'll tell you something interesting though. When I was at Bretton Woods, Mike, we used to have a careers, not a teacher,
Yeah, no, I remember.
support person. And every time he used to come in, he used to ask me, what do you want to become? And I used to say, I want to become a businessman. And the first thing that he ever said to me was, does your dad own a corner shop?
So prejudiced. Huh?
Okay. I don't know why he said that, and I have no idea why he thought I wanted to own a shop. Because my understanding at that time of a businessman was somebody who was wearing a dark suit, carrying a briefcase, wearing a bowler hat, and walking up and down the streets of London. That's what I thought a businessman was, according to what I knew. But I always had that passion. So working in the city of London, as much as I enjoyed it, I always knew I wanted to set up my own business. Right. And then I started my
Where did that come from, though? Had you had any family that were in their own business prior? Or just a desire?
Just a desire. So it's hard to pinpoint why. But as I've grown up, everybody has a word. Or I assume most people have a word rather than saying everybody. And the word for me, Mike, is freedom.
Okay.
And as I look back now, I think somewhere in me at that time, business meant freedom.
No one else could pull the rug. If you're in your own business, you're not going to sack yourself. You're in control of how much you get paid to some degree and so on.
And to some extent, you can do what you like, have different businesses,
Yeah.
shape your life, your organization, your team members, your clients, your community, whatever you care about in the way that you want. So you become a master of your own destiny.
Yeah.
So then I started an accountancy firm, and from that, it got bigger and better. We scaled that up, and then I went into property, children's day nurseries, and right now we're offshoring by setting up an office in Pakistan, in Islamabad.
Well, I'd love to unpick some of that if we can. So, firstly, I think, the second year after Bretton Woods opened. So that means you must be 59 or younger.
I am younger.
Younger. Okay, I'm 58. How old are you?
45.
45. Okay, so 45 years old. Bretton Woods had been running for, in that case, about 13, 14 years when you went there. And it was about that time that it was called. And this is something I share because your achievement is exceptional, but it's more exceptional for people who don't know Bretton Woods or didn't go to Bretton Woods. Not many people went to university. Not many people had that same self-belief and so on. And in fact, Bretton Woods was once called a demonized depository for social waste by an eminent Cambridge psychologist, who when I was awarded an honorary doctorate for education, met, and she still couldn't see how terrible that was to label kids anything negative, let alone social waste. I mean, it's so appalling. And yet, I'll often talk about Bretton Woods wasn't the best school, but if you wanted to learn, the teachers wanted to teach you. The problem is not many kids there had a love of learning, and their learning styles perhaps weren't best suited to the teaching style. But just last week I met up with one of my old teachers, Di Goldsmith, who was
Music?
a wonderful lady, the arts generally.
Sorry, yeah.
And in fact, I'm seeing an event locally next week. And when I look back, it's interesting because you talked about all the reasons why you could have a pity party or give excuses to not be successful, but you didn't let that hold you down. And I do think people can either have that pity party and worries me and the government are terrible and my parents are bad and my school was awful, or they can be part of the solution and look at what they can achieve and how they can achieve it, even if they come from tough challenges. So, I mean, interestingly, I asked about going to uni because I'd go as far as saying it was probably single digit percentages of people who went from Bretton Woods to university. It just wasn't the norm. Who inspired you at school? What subject was that? And how did you get to go from Bretton Woods to university?
I think it really started at primary school.
Was that Airscroft?
No,
the Beaches.
the
you
Beaches
said.
School in Millfield.
Sorry,
And my head teacher, who later on became a counsellor and then inspired me.
Okay, that's
partly
how you got into the politics.
to go into local politics, because he resigned and then I fought that election after him. And he always instilled in me the belief that I could and would do anything I wanted to do as long as I had a strong work ethic. And then that at Bretton Woods again was very helpful. So all the way from the top, and I assume our head teacher or principal would have been the same person, John Gribble, possibly.
Yeah, he joined just as I was leaving, so it's a bit of a transition there. Yeah.
But there were many teachers at Bretton Woods who were exceptionally supportive, kind, and if you needed the extra support during break time, lunch time, they'd offer that to you. Even after school, they'd stay back and help and support. So I think Bretton Woods for me, Mike, was one of the best experiences of my life, because that taught me how to interact with people, understand people from different backgrounds, and also to see things differently, which is interesting compared to how my children interact, in the sense that they go to private schools. So they've got a different view of the world compared to what I've got. And I was reading something over the weekend which said more CEOs of, I think, Fortune 500 companies didn't go to the Ivy League universities. And yet people would assume, going to those top universities in America or anywhere else helps you make it. In fact, there are a number of US presidents, in fact, who were brought up without a father or had some other huge significant challenge in their lives which they fought to become successful. So I think climbing up that ladder of success, as you call it, and knowing that all you've got is what you haven't got, makes you strive and work harder. Because I think if you've been to a very decent private school, for example, and you've been to Oxbridge, and you were born and brought up with a silver spoon, you can become complacent. Whereas people like you and me, for example, knew we were starting from rock bottom, and the only way we were going to make it to the top, whatever the top might be, was through hard work and also working smart, and then coming up with a system or a process that's going to get us there. And for me, Mike, that really was, I understood and established at a point in my life when I went to a seminar with a man called Steve Pipe, who used to work with accountants, and he was an accountant and a finance director at Kodak. And he did two things for me. The first was he got me back into reading books. The second thing that he shared with me was, it's all up there, your mindset. And if you can fix your mindset, rather than being a victim of society, of accepting the labels people put on you and becoming that person, change your mindset and see things from a different perspective. And that day really, I'd say, turned my life around.
And when was this? What sort of age would you have been at that point?
That was later on in life. That would be around about 2010.
So up until then, did you have your own business at that point, or
Yep.
were you
So
doing your?
started my business in 2003.
Because Ernst and Young is a
yeah.
fantastic business to have worked for.
Yeah, it is. And I made all of the mistakes in the first, say, 7 years, more than once. And then I said, there's got to be a better way of doing this. Okay. You've got clients coming in back in those days, bringing their records in a paper bag, and you're trying to make something out of those records, and there's information missing, and the clients aren't organized, and everything's being done last minute because either the clients don't bring things in, or at the time we weren't as organized as we ought to be. And then someone said you ought to go to a seminar with this man called Steve Pipe, who helps accountancy firms think differently, become proactive, okay, and add value. And I thought, what am I going to learn from taking a day off work?
Yeah.
But for some reason, I went there, Mike, all the way to Birmingham, to the motorcycle museum. And within 5 minutes, I knew this was what I was looking for.
You were glued, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I do believe there's those moments of fate where, they call it, what is it, sliding doors, and you could go one way or the other kind of thing. And often when you talk to people about those pivot points, they could have so nearly missed it. They could have so nearly not gone that day, or been in a closed mindset that day, and so on. But if you're going to put yourself in the position to have the chance of finding that motivation, that reason for being, that drive or that belief or that change of mindset, you're more likely to achieve it. And therefore, how do you put yourself in that position? And you talked about reading books, and one of the things I say is readers are leaders. And, I get a lot of mentees who say, I don't like reading, I'm dyslexic, or I've got ADHD and I can't focus. And say, okay, well, listen to Audible then. When I was a kid, we didn't have these things, but now you can listen on audio if you don't like reading. There is no excuse not to find the wisdom, the mindset, the experience, and the motivation of great leaders all around the world. So, now more than when we were kids, because of the internet, you can live anywhere in the world but access leaders' inspiration. People who have achieved outstanding things. And so we've had more in common in our upbringing than we have different, I think.
Absolutely. And I think whether it's reading or it's consuming information, one thing that I've learned, and I'm sure you're going to resonate with this, is success leaves clues.
Yeah, I like that saying.
So as you're looking at people, or you're not looking at them, actually you're looking into them. So whether you're reading biographies, autobiographies, watching documentaries, YouTube, all the plethora of information that we have, okay, you'll soon see things that resonate with you, okay, and you think, aha, this now makes sense. I was watching a YouTube video about a speech that Steve Jobs was giving, when he talks about, when you're going on a journey, you can't always see where you're going, but when you look back, it's easy to connect the dots.
Was this the address to the graduating Stanford address?
I think that's right.
19 minutes of pure wisdom.
That's right. Yeah. And that's what it is. It's you look at other people, and again, you and I were talking about this earlier, where you can emulate what they've done in your own unique way, because we're all different, we're all unique, we all do things differently, and that's a good thing.
Well, and that's where, as I was saying to you earlier, that's why success as a system is a passion of mine, because success does leave clues. And as I said, people saying, what's the secret of success? And there's so many people out there trying to sell a secret, which is a bit snake oily by a lot of the people who are doing it, as opposed to saying, I tell you what, there's a system to finance, there's a system to marketing, there's a system to hiring great teams. And these systems may change over time, but there's not even one rigid system. There's, this businessman has built it this way with their systems. This person's built it this way. And actually, if you look, if you listen, if you're willing to learn with an open mind, to be educated as a mindset, all of the answers are out there if you're willing to search them out and be open-minded and listen.
Absolutely. I mean, there's different routes to climbing a mountain, but the view from the top is the same, Mike.
Yeah.
So everybody will have a different system which works for them. Some people start work early, 5 a.m. club. Some people like working in the evenings or late at night, for example. Okay, some people are organized. Some people like working in chaos. Okay, I personally have a very messy desk, lots of paper everywhere. Whereas people may assume I'm going to be very organized and I have everything in particular piles. I don't, because that's the way that I enjoy working, and my colleagues are really good. Every 6 months, they feel really sorry for me and tidy my desk. And
But some people would go to pieces if they got OCD and they see that. But if it works for you, it works for you.
Yeah.
We don't all have to be robots. We can be individual and be successful. And I like what you said there about the view from the top's the same. So you can get there by different routes, but the view from the top's the same.
I think generally speaking, people have become more lazy as time's gone on, and it's something that you said which I want to touch upon, because I go up and down the country talking about property and business, and one of the most common questions is, what's the one thing that I can do to become successful? And my answer to them, which is my answer to everybody, I don't have one thing, but I've got 167 things if you want to do them. But nobody wants the 167 things. Everybody wants that one thing. But there is no one thing.
They want a pill. Just give me the
bullet, or a pill that's going to fix all their ailments.
Yeah.
Well, it's not going to happen. So people should be asking the right questions in the first place if they really want to change their life around, or they want to develop, grow, and flourish.
Well, it's interesting because I used to run a consultancy with a good friend and my business partner, Tom Fender, and we built it here, America, Australia, New Zealand, and so on. And often we'd go in, and we'd go into big companies, some small companies, and it might be some startups like a new food or drink business, but it would also be Red Bull, Coca-Cola, Unilever, Procter and Gamble, all the tobacco companies, Cadbury, all these big companies. And we'd be asked in loads of questions. And I remember someone said to me once, well, hang on a minute, you're charging a fortune as a consultancy. How come all you do is ask questions? And I said, well, actually, the route to the right answer is the right question. And the mistake that people make is they don't ask the right questions. And sometimes you may ask a question of me, I would say to a client, but you're even asking me the wrong question because you think that's the route to the answer you need. But I need to really ask you so many interrogative questions to understand where you are, where you really want to be, what the strengths in your business are, and what the issues in your business are. I can come and give you generic kind of messages and systems, but if it wants to be specific, it's like a doctor that needs to understand the systems that you're suffering with, the extent to which they're a smaller part of your issue or a big part of your issue, in order to get to the perfect mixture of, or cocktail of, medicines that are right for you to make you the best you. And yet people think, if I want to be better, just give me the answer. They don't realise there's a lot of questioning first. There's a lot of understanding.
I'll tell you what's really interesting, linked with that. So I've done over 3,000 business growth consultations now. And the first thing, Mike, is people don't actually identify the problem that they really have. So they think they've got a problem with their sales system, when it could be marketing, when it could be lack of margins, their pricing isn't right. And then the second and more interesting thing is, they know what the answer is in terms of fixing it, but they just haven't thought about it deeply enough. And that's where it takes people like you and me and others to ask the right questions to help them get to the right answer.
And then often, as we're giving them the answer, you just said they know the answer, and people say, "Yeah, I know that," and well, but you need to do more of this. Yeah, I know that, Mike. And, I get frustrated, and I sometimes say, look, to know and not to do is not to know.
Yeah.
The man who can read but doesn't read is no better than the man who can't read, and so on. Which brings me on to something I really wanted to get into with you, knowing that you've done so many consultations, that you've helped so many businesses, different business and varied business. Sometimes as I'm mentoring, it feels like a bit like the movie Groundhog Day. I think, I'm having the same conversation now that I was having this morning, that I was having yesterday. And there are a lot of the issues are common. A lot of the weaknesses or development areas are common. What would you say are the three most common or biggest issues that hold business back?
So my experience is in the small business arena, and the first and the most common one is a lack of systems and processes.
Yeah.
Because businesses, those small businesses, and obviously also medium-sized, also, Mike, is that they become people dependent as opposed to process dependent. That's the first
Okay,
one.
that's interesting. Yeah.
The second one I find quite often is they don't have a proper sales and marketing function at all. So their business comes in from one particular stream, and that's all it is. If you ask somebody, how much does it cost you to get a lead?
Yeah.
They've got no idea. How much does it cost you to convert a lead? No idea. How much is that lead worth? What's the lifetime value?
Yeah.
No idea whatsoever. It's like a foreign language.
And most of them say they don't like selling. And I think, why are you in business?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's because people think sales is contrived, that you're ramming something down somebody's throat. And it's, as you know, it's quite the opposite. Selling is sharing in an elegant solution with somebody. And I was saying, based on what you've told me so far and the question that I've asked you, this is the right fit for you. If it suits you, take it. If it doesn't, leave it. And I think you've got to be comfortable in selling, because what I was taught by an early mentor of mine, a guy called Peter Thompson, who said, you've got to learn to sell, and then you've got to stop selling. So learn the process, how it works, and then just stop selling.
And start just listening, connecting, finding the problems so that you can offer the solution.
And people will buy.
So I got lack of systems, procedures, sales and marketing function. What was the third?
The third one, in my view, I can think is pivotal and vital, is their pricing.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what the margins are, and they blame it on everything else. Okay, and it's a lack of cash flow, lack of profitability. Okay, because if you're not making the right margin, Mike, you can't employ the best team members. You can't spend enough money on sales and marketing. You can't enhance your product. Okay, you can't have a better office. You can't have better equipment. Okay, and if your margins are right, you've got the fat there to be able to burn some of it by making mistakes, because we all make mistakes, but you've still got enough margin there to then try and improve what you've already got. And most small businesses, and even the larger ones, don't spend any time on their pricing. I mean, the really bigger ones obviously do, but most small ones, okay, don't spend any time on that.
And three outstanding sort of nuggets of insight there and wisdom. And I'd like to delve into some of them, because, when you say about lack of systems and procedures, and they become more people-focused than process-focused and so on. And I was talking to someone just this morning, a mentoring session, and I was saying that, we all look for the perfect people. Now, they're few and far between.
I'm yet to find one, by the way.
I've never met anyone who's perfect. If there is someone who's absolutely at the top of the game, chances are they've gone into business on their own and they're unemployable. If they are employable, they're probably hugely expensive, and you will find it hard to control that sort of person because they need free rein. So I then said, well, given that's the case, and we should always aim to get the best people we can get, but we can also look at outstanding businesses like McDonald's that could operate on, if there was a grading of people, which isn't a nice thing to do, but let's just say perfect was 100%, and good or great was 90%, and okay was 80%. They've built a business model that can take people at 50, 60, 70% of potential, and they've built processes and systems that can still be fantastically successful with people who are not anything like at their best. But what they then do is put the processes in to help those people evolve and develop, and often they can take people from being literally on the counter to running their own store over time. So I think we accept that people aren't perfect, but we look for the best processes, and then we help our people with processes that make them more towards their perfect self. And I think that's really a great point that you made there. The sales and marketing piece and leads, it amazes me how many people expect customers to come and knock on their door, and they don't either buy leads or generate leads or even understand that people aren't coming to you. Increasingly with we used to have businesses where you went to an office or you went to a shop or you went to a high street. Now you've got to find those people, and actually the best way to get business is to go out and find the customers and to generate that, which I think was really a crucial point as well. And then pricing, probably 70% of the marketing and research based consultancy that I had, because what we didn't do was just give advice on our thoughts. We researched tens of thousands of shoppers, manufacturers, retailers, wholesalers to try and understand changing needs. And from that research, we would give advisory or consultation, but based on fact, not based on opinion, or at best or worse, whichever way you look at it, it was educated opinion, it was fact-based opinion, not just my belief, if you like. And when it came to pricing, what was really interesting was pricing can work at pretty much any level if there's margin in it. So, who could deny, if we were thinking food and drink, the discounters, they're very low price, but they make great money. The supermarkets are probably mid-price, but they make great money. The premium retailers are high price, but they're finding a model that works to their margin. And to me, I used to say it was a set of scales. If it was the benefits I receive for the burdens I endure, and it was a set of scales, the benefits of a product are its quality, how long it will last, it might be the amount that I'm getting. So there's all those benefits. The burden is how much I've got to pay. Well, actually, if I can increase the benefits, I can charge more for that product. And so, but we're so-and-so are cheaper and they're stealing all our customers. And I think you need to offer more. And I was just talking earlier to somebody about Charlie Mullins, how he could charge double digit more than anyone else in London. But he would be there when he said he would be there. He would give a fixed price and honour that price, even if it cost him more, and just offer so much. And the example was given about, buy this child. Oh yeah, now you say that, I was aware, because we were speaking to a customer and she said, I was waiting so long, I'd been let down by this plumber, and I thought, sod it, I know he's more expensive, but I'm going to ring Pimlico Plumbers. I said they rang Pimlico Plumbers, and there was a salesperson there within 2 hours that afternoon. And he said, this is going to be the price. And I thought, fucking hell, okay, it's a bit expensive, but when can you do it? And they said, we keep that in stock. We can have it here in an hour. And, not many people can give that speed of service, that speed of response, and that commitment to a price. But when you can, price becomes less important because the burden has reduced. And I think if people think about that, that's why a Ferrari can cost as much as 30 Fiats, but people will pay for a Ferrari, even though they both get to A to B. So I think it's not just about pricing per se, it's about establishing what exactly am I offering? Am I discount? Am I standard? Am I premium? Am I super premium? And what does it mean within the product or service I'm offering to be discount, standard, premium, super premium? And if I commit to super premium, I've got to commit to it and live it and breathe it and deliver it. And so I think, 3 incredible areas. What would be the most common mistakes that you think businesses make?
I think most of them don't spend enough time on thinking the route that they want to take. And I don't mean a 68-page or a 450-page business plan. It could be just an A4 sheet of paper.
Yeah.
And just trying to map out, why they're in business, what their USPs are, what makes them different, how they're adding value, and where they're looking to go.
I mean, people might not believe that. I mean, we've met a few times, but we've never had this depth of conversation, and yet the commonality is amazing, because the whole transition mapping that I work on was born out of one of my mentors, who was head of corporate restructuring for KPMG. And I remember, and I tell this story a lot, and I'm happy to repeat it because repetition is the mother of success. But he said, I go in, I charge 5 or 6 million quid. I'm sure it was similar in EY, because we've charged 5 or 6 million quid, we've gone in with the team for 4, 5, 6 weeks. And there's 20 folders of output. And in there's research, reports, analysis, recommendations. He said, but because it's 20 folders, no one's going to read it. Because they don't read it, they can't possibly act on it. Because they don't act on it, how can they fix the problem that we first went in to resolve? He said, so I wish we could do the 20 folders of thinking, analysis, research, but say to them, we'll give you one page. That one page is all you need. And so that's where, this is 20 years ago, that's where my system started from and has evolved. And it really is that one page strategic map. Let's choose a period, 3 years. What's your current state? Where are you today? What's your future state? Where do you want to be in the future? What areas do we need to work on to get from where you are to where you want to be? And what initiatives do we need to perform or develop in each area? And people say, it can't be that simple. Well, of course it can. It really is. It's not complicated. It's not easy, but it is simple. And when people make it 68 pages, to use your reference, they're not going to read it. And if they don't read it, they won't act on it. And if they don't act on it, they can't possibly deliver it. So I think when you talk strategy with people, it tends to scare them. And so people need to understand strategy is, and you talked about it, and I love the word you used, thinking. Strategy is, I often talk about, and I learned this from mountain climbing, it was a philosophy and it got applied to business, of stop, breathe, think. And when I was doing the mountain climbing, and you're going, and because you might not be going fast, but because you're going up, your oxygen levels are reducing. Because they're reducing, you can't breathe properly. Because you can't breathe properly, your body will prioritize the primary organs, which are heart, lungs, legs, arms, and so on, because that's what you're using. Brain often doesn't think as clearly. So they used to have a saying, stop, breathe, think. If you stop, you can then breathe more easy. If you breathe more easy, your brain gets oxygen and you make better decisions. That's right. And if people spend a bit of time each day, as Churchill said, to think, just a bit of that. People say, we think all the time. That's exactly the problem. You don't. Yeah. You don't take the time to think. But if you could just think, am I enjoying things as they are? Is the business where I want it to be? Am I in the business I want to be in? And if not, where do I want to be in the future? What do I need to change? And who do I need to help me? And what processes and systems do we need to adopt or adapt to get from where we are to where we want to be? I know what my thought is, but I'd be interested in your thought of. So you or I will go in and we'll do this consultation with our respective clients or potential clients, and we give them this map, and we take them through this process of making them think, making them stop and breathe and think, interrupting their current limiting behaviour or limiting process or system, and we give them a map. And like a map, it says, this is where you are, this is where you want to go, and here's how you do it. Still, 70% of them don't do it. Why do you believe most people still, even with a trusted process, a proven process, a map to their future, don't achieve all that they could achieve?
Well, there's different reasons for that, but I think to keep it really simple, Mike, if I was to give you a simple answer, is that they are in a particular routine and they've formed particular habits and they just go back to normal. So a large percentage of people who are smokers, who have a heart attack, within the first year end up going back to smoking.
Even they know
it's going to kill them. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So it's about changing those habits and those routines. But deeper than that really is they've got to want to change, and they've got to want to improve, and they've got to believe that what they're doing right now, i.e. working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours, being the last one to be paid and sometimes not being paid, not being able to meet all their debts and liabilities, clients and customers and patients owing them a lot of money, and they're struggling to make ends meet, working every single hour under the sun, isn't the reason they started their business.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's so great to hear. It sort of resonates with me so much. And using the smoking example that you did, my own mum, I lost her a few years ago, sadly, and I'd give much of what I had to spend 1 minute with her, just to give her a hug again and spend a little bit of time, have a cup of tea. But she, through smoking, got emphysema, had heart attacks, had a triple heart bypass, had a pacemaker, and had oxygen literally wired around the house, around the skirtings that she could plug herself into. And yet I'd go around to have a cup of tea and she'd be smoking. And I'd say, Mum, what the F are you doing? That's pure oxygen. You're going to blow the house up and kill yourself. I wouldn't mind, but I bought you this house and it's my house. You're going to blow up, kind of thing. What are you doing? And she was literally couldn't walk to the toilet without getting out of breath, but would still be smoking. And that addiction, and it is an addiction. And people can think, I understand alcohol addiction, I understand drug addiction, I understand smoking addiction, but they don't realise the degree to which their habits that might just be, I don't want to get up, I only want to work 8 hours, I don't want the hassle of setting up my own business. I'd rather just go to work and come home. It's those habits are addictive, are holding them back, and are absolutely within their control. They are and one of my mentors used to say when I was younger, I never got it until I got it. And I now say it, and people don't get it till they get it. It is that you are one decision away from success. Yeah. You think, yeah, but I've decided to be... No. When you make that decision, you'll know. And that decision is, and I've used it before as a kind of mantra at conferences, get off your butt. And it's not just get off your butt as in get off your ass and do something and do the work that's necessary to get from where you are to where you want to be, but get off your reason why you don't. And that is, yeah, I know what you're saying, Mike, but, or, well, I would do that, but, or you don't understand, And it's like, with you, it is always but. Stop saying but. Think about your reason why, and that's what we get in. If you really want it, and, was it the Spice Girls who said, what do you want? What do you really, really, really want? What do you really, really, really want? Whatever it is. It's like, if people know, or when they know what they really, really want, and they, find a compelling pull to that. Well, if I had that, I could look after my kids better. I could retire my mum so she don't have to work so hard anymore. I could give back to my community. I could build a piece of architecture that's going to be there long behind me, this legacy. If they can find that massive pull and they can find the reasons why not. I don't want to die when I'm 60. I don't want to leave my kids with this problem. I don't want my kids, because I'm smoking, be able to outrun me at the age of 7 or whatever it is. If they can find that negative push that is a burning desire to move away from, and a positive pull that is a really welcoming, compelling future, they'll do what it needs to take. But until they get that want, that need, that vision of what they really, really want, they get stuck in their butt, their butt.
And to add to that, Mike, making money and making excuses is mutually exclusive. You're either doing one or the other. And I think it was Earl Nightingale who said, we're all self-made, but it's only the rich who admit it. Wherever you are...
I like that. That's Earl Nightingale, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. It's because of the choices that you've made. And I think people tend to neglect the responsibility that they have. And I'm sure you've heard responsibility is having the ability to respond to a particular situation.
You are responsible.
Well, rather than saying, why does it happen to me? Why does it always happen to me? Sod's law, blah, 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 so on and so forth. This is where we are. Okay, well, this is where I am. Okay, what are all my different options? What are the upsides? What are the downsides? Should I act now? Should I act later? Think about those things and then just move forward. As you said, you got to keep taking action.
Well, and connected to that, when I speak at schools, I tend to go in either just before GCSEs or just before A-levels and try and give them that kind of 6 months prior to those exams, that push to do an extra 15 minutes each day on some key subjects or whatever it is. And think about, if you did an extra 15 minutes a day, that would change this grade to that grade, that would open the door to this job maybe, or this university. It'd give you different choices. Hard work alone isn't enough, education alone isn't enough, but if you put the two together. But often I'll encapsulate it in something like, at this moment, you're 16, you're 18, depending where they are, you can blame your parents if you haven't got everything or you're not achieving everything you should. You can blame the government. You can blame your teachers, because you have been under the care and under the control of all those people. But from the minute you leave school, you now are in control of your destiny. And if you are failing in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, you cannot anymore ever blame the government, your teachers, your parents. Because even though you might say, I had a terrible upbringing, you don't understand. Well, so did I. So did you. So did 100 people we could name from this city alone, let alone outside. But they went on, they took control of their life, they found and focused and thought about what they want, and they took the action necessary. But hindsight is a wonderful thing. Here we find ourselves at the maturer end of our careers, if you like, me more so than you in age. But if you could go back to Shaz of 16 years old or 15 years old, what would be the one bit of advice that you would want to give yourself?
I think the best advice I can give my 16-year-old self is to never limit myself. Because most people, as you know, Mike, live life based on limitations that they set for themselves. And those glass ceilings really aren't ceilings at all. There is no ceiling. You can go as high as you want, as long as you dare to dream, think, believe, act, and do.
And that's a wonderful point to bring this together. And I'm going to say this out loud because I want Chris to build it into the video version of this. But I was talking to someone just this morning. Have you seen the experiment that was done with fleas in a jar, whereby in effect a flea can jump about 8 feet? I mean, it's just incredible when you took their size to how far they can jump. It's amazing. But they put fleas in a jar, and this is on YouTube, anyone can Google it, and they put the lid on, and the fleas jump up and hit the top and hit the top and hit the top and hit the top and hit the top, and they leave those fleas in there for 3 days. After 3 days, they take the lid off, and that limiting belief, the fleas jump just before and down, just before and down, just before, and they never jump out. Because learned behaviour says they can only go so high without hitting the ceiling. And what's really sad, but also equally interesting, is that when those fleas then have babies, those babies, because the parents only jump so far, only jump so high. Of course, you'll get the odd one that will break out. But actually, the masses are held to limiting performance, limiting achievement, limiting ability to achieve everything they dream for, because they've either been born into a ceiling that is not real, or they have hit what they believe to be the ceiling so often that they give up trying to jump any higher. I really appreciate your time today. I look forward to another session at some point in the future and coming onto your podcast. I hope you found that as enlightening, motivating and powerful as I did. If you enjoyed, please like, share, subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Success is a System. Thank you.